And welcome back to the Dean Obeidallah Show. We're live here, and it's Friday, November 8th, the first Friday after the election. We have three great people to help us make sense of us. Nida Khan is back, journalist. She's written Huffington Post, Essence, CNN, and more. Nida, good to see you, my friend.
Hello, Dean. Good to see you. And I wanted to ask your permission if I'm
Uh,
allowed to be Debbie Downer, considering all
you
the events this week.
whatever you want to be, especially because you're going to be deported soon. So you just enjoy
Oh,
your
yeah.
time here in the
Thank
country.
you so much.
Lizz Winstead is here again, our friend, comedian, co-creator of The Daily Show, creator of Abortion Access Front, host of the podcast Feminist Buzzkills, and such a great activist in the space of reproductive freedom for women. Liz, good to see you, and you can be happy, sad,
I
whatever you
feel
want.
like
Everyone,
I feel like we're gonna have a cage match of Debbie Downer. So I'm here to bring the joy and the
all
downer.
right. And now over here we got Pete Dominick, big Pete energy. He's a comedian, host of Stand Up with Pete Dominick. He was on CNN last night, kicking Scott Jennings' ass, who is just a villain. Good to see you. And you did a great job last night. Seriously, I watched the clip today. Good job.
Thanks. I'm getting plenty of threats, and I just had to call my daughter's school to make sure it doesn't bleed into there again. But I'm sorry. Why are they Debbie Downers? I'm psyched. I am white. I am straight. It is my time.
Finally. All
When
right.
has it? Yeah, finally it's your time. Good news for the big guy.
Yeah, because
It's
it
time
wasn't
to
the time.
shine.
Well, Liz, were you suggesting that, this isn't the first time it's the time for white straight men who are Christian in
I mean, I
America?
know that it's like it's really hard to finally have some privilege.
We
And
were able,
so
no, but
use it
to be
wisely.
fair,
Use it wisely, Pete.
to be
Use it
fair,
wisely.
I used to keep my sexism a little more quiet, my racism a little more quiet, but now I walk up to women of color and I get in their face and I'm like, "What? I am so white and I am." I didn't used to do that, but now I have permission to do it, and it might even be hired at a job because I'm that big of an asshole.
Yeah, it's
And
exciting.
that's a good song, though.
Exciting
That's a really,
times.
did you write that song? Nick Fuentes wrote that song? Who wrote that song? That you just that was a good song.
I
All right.
mean,
So,
rewarding, if you reward the worst amongst us
hmm,
with all the,
okay.
bits of
Let's
culture.
let's just go around the horn and get just your reaction. If you want to add what was the most shocking part, was there a shocking part? Then we'll get a little bit more detailed into it. So Liz, let's start with you. Were you surprised by the result? Did you think that she was going to win, or if she lost, it would have been closer? Like,
I mean, I I wanted her to win because I just didn't want to be here today. Not on your show, but just in general. So I was one of those people that since I get up and fight every day, I was willing to cast a vote for somebody who I could fight with. And I don't know that anybody could have predicted. I have some larger feelings about tactics and strategies that I have been
oh,
sort of saying on the internet and
mhm,
getting hate from sort of Democratic Party hacks, I guess I'll
mhm,
call them. And
sure.
so but I was not surprised because patriarchy doesn't take a holiday. And so no, I wasn't surprised.
Interesting.
Third
Nitha,
one.
what about you, my friend?
I think I agree totally with Liz. Not surprised. I tried to remain hopeful,
Hmm.
I'm a realist with a sliver of optimism, so always trying to keep that hope alive. But realistically, considering all the dynamics involved, the racism, sexism, and then also how the campaign was ran, which I'm really interested to see what Liz has to say too, if we're on the
We'll
same
get
page.
to that.
But just and so a lot of things did go incorrectly. Some things went well, and then a lot of issues were ignored, a lot of voices were ignored, and now here we are, and we all have to suffer with the consequences. So very
Hmm.
disappointing, disgusted, feeling disillusioned, unlike Pete over there, feeling disillusioned, and frightened. Like my mother was texting me at 2 a.m. on election night, and I'm like, woman, why are you awake? And she was just like, that's how upset she was.
Sure.
You're seeing that across the board in a lot of communities and with a lot of people.
True. And Pete, I should just mention, I've changed my name. I'm not Dean Obeidallah. I'm Dean Obeidallah. I'm an Italian guy from Jersey now because we rule, right, Pete?
Oh,
Yeah. I
yeah,
love
good
Pete
to see
Dominick. We're gonna
you.
hang out.
Oh,
I'm kidding. This is gallows humor by comedians trying to make sense of things. Because if you don't use humor, nothing really makes sense right now. So, Pete, I want to get your reaction. Then I want to get to you, what you said yesterday on CNN about your daughter and her reaction, because I thought it was very moving and painful at the same time. But first of all, what was your reaction? Were you surprised? Did you think she was going to win? I mean, sincerely.
Yeah, I did.
So
I
did
thought I thought she was going to win for two reasons. I think a lot about the energy that you can't track, but her rallies, the attendance of the rallies, and the energy that created the volunteers. The Get Out the Vote was the best operation I've ever seen. They had unlimited money. There were so many volunteers. He had no Get Out the Vote, and his energy was low, and his arenas were empty. But I think the reason why I also thought she was going to win is because I'm a well-meaning, well-intentioned progressive white man, and while I've read all the feminist and anti-racist history, and I understand how this country works, my own experience in it is that good things often happen. And so if I, and it wasn't like I wasn't listening to women and people of color. I was, and inviting them on the show and learning from them. I just thought they were wrong because of the life I've had and the way I have a sunny view of things. And so, I woke up and here we are.
Hey, it's interesting. I want to get to what you said about your daughter, then we'll continue the
I would love to
conversation.
know what or Liz think about like people like me who think that.
Well, they're on my show now, Pete. I get to ask the questions. You don't get to ask other people questions. This is not Stand Up with Pete Dominick, which is a great show. And Liz and Nitha, I will ask you that question a little bit because I think it's a good question, but I'm not giving you any credit for it. I've had people email me and text me, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, I'm the least of your concern. I can pass for a white guy. I really can. Yeah, my name's Obeidallah, but I can still, if I don't want to talk about being Arab or Muslim, I can pass for a white guy. I am the least, and I appreciate so much. It's nice that people are concerned. My concern is for everyone else, especially women, people of color, people of mixed status families where, say that the children were born here, so they're citizens, but their parents are undocumented, and they're going to be ripped away right in front of them by Trump's armed fascist militia. I mean, my LGBTQ community, you have even Democrats turning on transgender people now to try to score political points, which is vile. And it's history's going to look back and they're like, what the F was wrong with you? How do you do that? You think that's why you lost? It's not why we lost. There's a lot of reasons we lost. That wasn't it. Let's ask the question. It was actually a good question. So start with you, Liz. What is your reaction to people like Pete who are optimistic, and maybe it's because it's not the real experience of him or me, because I was optimistic too. I'm like, they've got to win. She's got to win. How could she not win this?
I have about at least 10 years on all y'all, right? And I'm probably gonna start crying.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Because I'm so angry that leaning into warmongers and leaning into never Trump people and trying to get that vote and thinking that those people care, instead of leaning into and listening to who's been harmed by those people. If you want to know why 10 million people didn't show up to vote, it's because they, for decades, were subjected to cruelty by the people they were platforming, thinking those were the people that were going to help them win. And I'm just really angry about it.
I'm sorry, Liz. I'm sorry. And I appreciate, your honesty and your sharing. And we'll come back. I'll come back to you. I want you to talk more about what you were saying online, where people are coming at you, and what you were saying that was upsetting Democratic.
That was basically it. That was basically it. Why are we doing this? Why are we doing this? And I was saying it in August, and I was like, why isn't Dick Cheney apologizing for the people he slaughtered over the course of his career? Why is it exciting to have somebody we just don't disagree with in your camp? The harm that these people cause, these Lincoln Project people and all these people who, instead of trying to win points with us and get people to vote, why didn't you go on a tour of showing people that the policies and the foundational harm that you did was wrong and that you were wrong? I haven't heard any of them do that. They wanted all of us to celebrate them.
Thank you so much, Liz. I could not have said it any better myself, and that is 1000% what exactly I was going to say too. I don't think anything infuriated a huge swath of the base, young people, progressives, more than that dynamic. Like, whose idea? And we can actually say, I'm going to just say it. Once the Clinton advisors, all those people stepped in and took over her campaign, it went to hell. It started off really great, the fundraising, the grassroots, the energy, young people getting involved. Once those other consultants who get paid millions of dollars got involved, then you saw, oh yeah, let's bring Liz Cheney, let's go on tour. What are great clothes to stand there on stage with the daughter of a warmonger and be like, hey, vote for us. Because rather than listening to that segment of the base that is anti-war, that wants a lot of policies that they don't even want to touch, they thought, oh, those people will vote for us anyway. Let's try to get this, center disaffected Republicans. Well, guess what? Newsflash, those people, aside from the few that will vote for you, the vast majority will never, ever vote for you. So stop trying to appease them and instead listen to the people that are in your party that have voted for you. And nothing made me more angry than that.
It's interesting you bring that up because it was conversations we had internal, like me and Matt, my producer, about the Liz Cheney thing. Like one time out with her, I was like, okay, that's good. But a lot of times, and then at one event, Vice President Harris thanked Dick Cheney. I'm like, please don't ever do that again.
Yeah.
She actually said, I'm like, oh my God. And that was only one time she said it, but look, that wasn't the only strategy. That was part of the strategy, but there was no campaigning with Bernie. Bernie was out there doing stuff for her. AOC was out there doing stuff, but they weren't together, and that was by design. I don't know if that won or lost the campaign. Like we are doing the same thing they do on cable news. Everyone looks at a reason that they think is why she lost, and it's probably various reasons for various communities that brought people out and made others not come out. I just saw the numbers in Dearborn, by the way, for what it's worth. Biden won Dearborn like 80%. She got about 35% of the vote in Dearborn this time, and Trump got 40 something percent. And those are the real numbers. Those aren't exit polls. Those are the actual totals of the results of the election there. And it's a community that's like 90 something percent Arab American, and they despised Trump the first time. Pete, I'd love you to share what you shared last night on CNN about your daughter's reaction.
Well, my daughters are 19 and 17. And when Trump was elected in 2016, you do the math, but they didn't obviously understand what it meant. They only understand that their father lied to them when he said, when you wake up, there'll be a woman president. Because I got that too, if you can believe it or not, to my daughters. And so, yeah, my daughter, they're losing their innocence now as white girls in America to a certain extent. And so, what she wrote was, this election was a harsh she wrote, as a woman, I'm terrified. This election was such a harsh reminder that a woman could be everything she needs to be, but still not enough. And that the majority of this country has chosen hate over humanity. And I'm devastated to admit how foolish I feel to have truly believed in hope for the people. And I was just so sad to see her be that cynical. But I unfortunately think that she's echoing the cynicism of a lot of people her age, which is crazy too, because, getting that disenchanted at that young isn't always that common it has been less so maybe during our lifetime, I suppose. So that was what she said. And I think that's what you asked me.
Yeah, that is what I asked you. And I thought it was. And did you really have to call your principal, the principal?
Well, because I've been involved in the school board fights, and because I'm a public person, very well known and like a very ultra famous, and can't walk
You're
down.
Really famous.
Someone,
it's unbelievable.
Thinking I'm Daughtry. No, but because everybody knows me in my town, and because they ran a silence campaign against me in the past, and I experienced fascism as part of our school board fight. Both when so as a result of that, they shared my appearance last night on our local Facebook pages. So I called the school just to do due diligence. Not that I'm not worried necessarily, but it's local, and they constantly threaten me and my family. But no kids have threatened her, and I feel like she's safe there. But yeah, I'm always just the words that their dad says sometimes get to them.
Oh, that's interesting. I'm checking with Nida Khan, Liz Winstead, Pete Dominick, allegedly were comedians, all of us, but it's a difficult time. And Nitha is just a journalist, and she's generally down anyway. So this is nothing new.
Exactly. This
I
is
mean,
nothing
like
new.
every time she's on, and she's like what? One day you were actually like upbeat. I was unnerved. I'm like, I don't like
I was
this.
trying to be hopeful. And, I actually went to the rally in Philadelphia on Monday. I was there.
Wow.
And it was amazing, just like the massive amount of people that were there, the diverse crowd. I was actually sitting next to these older women. They were all seniors. And, they were sitting on these chairs and they told me that they were Republicans who were voting for Kamala. We had a wonderful conversation. So there was an element of hope. But again, because I'm a realist, I was like, I don't know. Let's see. Let's wait and see what happens. So yes, there were some Republicans that voted for her, but again, you just cannot ignore the people that have had your back. And then also, of course, the pocketbook issues. The economy is doing well, of course. It's doing well compared to many other countries, but the cost of living, the cost of housing, groceries, all of that is very real. Like over the last couple of years, that's all everybody I know has talked about, how things are out of control. So what happens too is when people are pissed off and angry, they take it out on whoever is in power. And Democrats really need to do a much better job of effectively communicating how they are the party that will make their lives better in that regard, how their policies and simple, plain language, not pontificating. I always say Democrats bring a pontificating thought to a knife fight. It's like, you can't do that. Kamala Harris actually did a much better job than many other candidates that have run in the past in doing that, but they still need to work on that. So that's part of it too. And then, of course, the racism, the sexism. So it's a convergence of all the most horrible things that came together. And now we have this guy who, and Dean, you mentioned the Arab Muslim vote, and this also really makes me angry that space was left open for him to come in and
That's the problem.
act like he's somehow anti-war. I wrote a piece last weekend that was about the fact that when he was in office, he exponentially increased drone campaigns in many areas around the world. He killed more civilians in places like Mosul and Raqqa. In Afghanistan, the deaths of civilians increased 95%. He changed policies from attrition to annihilation, which therefore makes air wars more indiscriminate, more civilian deaths. So for him and JD Vance to come in and act like, oh, we're all about peace and we're not warmongers, we don't want this. I mean, give me a break. And that space should have never been left open. And Kamala could have done the bare minimum of, letting a Palestinian speak on the DNC stage, meeting with community members, or even just saying, hey, I'm going to do something different than Biden. Like, she didn't even necessarily have to go into the specifics, but just simply saying that and saying, I hear you, I'm going to do something different, we're going to bring peace. Like, there just was not enough of that. And they completely discounted those voices and those voters. And it's just, all of it is so depressing to me.
Yeah. And I would say too, three things that are on top, aside from my sobbing, but the three things that I feel like were so problematic is the media constantly wants to be us. They want to be comedians. They want to be the Daily Show. And so leave that shit to us, right? And so the three things that we could have hammered home are what tariffs are. Don't talk about what Kamala's pushing. Talk about what Trump is pushing. Trump is pushing tariffs. That is a tap. That should have been hammered all day, every day. Also, how much money undocumented folks put into our system, our Social Security system, that they never get out, because that is just garbage that is out there and laid there, And then lastly, talking about, we talked about in real ways, like JD Vance's shit about women, like that clip was tangible, but the tangible shit that Trump said he was going to do, how much would it actually cost to get rid of that? Lawrence O'Donnell did a thing last night, but too late. Like, that should have been those three things could have been hammered all the time, because people think that those are pocketbook issues. They think that people here who are here undocumented are taking their jobs when they are literally some of them are doing jobs, and also they are citizens who live among you. Where are we humanizing undocumented people? The offer, that's just real. And so it makes me angry to just think about how we didn't take that on. And instead the media went on and on and on about how windmills are going to, destroy bacon or whatever the Bucky said, you know,
Whales.
and that's all funny.
Something like that.
But you
Birds.
know, it's like, that's our job. Let us do that.
Pete, yes.
I would say of all the points that both Nitha and Liz made, they're all interesting to me, and I don't have any reaction to any of them. I obviously I do because I'm
You're
a
going to
person
speak
who
now,
talks.
right?
But
Right.
but I and I really like Nitha's case for Trump's, warmongering. I haven't heard it made quite so well. I'm looking forward to reading that piece. But if I were to just say this, if I were to concede that everything they said would have had the candidate and the strategy done that, I still think, and this is what I said last night as well, that's been resonating. That's the only reason I mention it, is that she would have lost. So even if she had done all those things the way and perfectly executed them, or even been a different candidate, I still think she would have lost because I think this is kind of who we are, and because of Nitha's point, which is the one thing that really I think is for sure about incumbents around the world have lost as a result of inflation, which is a result of COVID, and people are dumb, and they blame it on the person, in charge. And now everybody's gonna. So anyway, that's what I would say. I think she still would have lost because of inflation, and that's how people vote. But either way, the fact that so many people voted for such a terrible person is also important to say that's who we are. I mean, at least voters are that. Then
Right. And Nitha, does it
Mhm.
matter to you, like, because everyone says, and you said it, and people say this, oh, over half of America voted for Trump. And in reality, that's not accurate. And I don't mean because children can't vote. Turnout was 65%, right? He got about 50, slightly over 50% of the turnout of people who voted, meaning 33% of Americans voted for
of
Donald Trump.
registered voters.
Right, of registered voters. So of the registered voters, he got 33%. That's it, not even 50%. Now you can extrapolate the people who didn't vote, maybe they would have voted the same. We don't even know. But does it matter? Does it make it feel any better to know that only a third of America actually voted for this guy?
I mean, yes and no, because at the end of the day, he's still won, right? And this is where I would disagree a bit with Pete because, it's not the fact that she would have overwhelmingly won, but it was the fact of bringing out as many of your supporters as possible, of energizing them, exciting them. Because if you look at even the results, it was the first time, I think, since 2004. Actually, don't quote me on that. Let me just say the stat that more registered independents came out to vote than Democrats.
Yes.
And they
It's
were
the first time
tied.
since they've done that polling. Yeah.
Yeah,
20
and they
years.
were tied with the number of Republicans. So what does that say, right? Right there. And the whole like anti-war thing is actually in both sides. There's for very different reasons. Like the right wing wants to be isolationist, totally different reasons. And whereas the left wants, peace and the end to death and destruction. So two very different reasons, but that, people act like foreign policy doesn't play into it, but it absolutely does. And when you're hurting yourself personally, domestically, and you're seeing billions of dollars, trillions of dollars being spent on this kind of stuff, that's when people also get pissed off and angry. So it's a numbers game. So it's not just one issue. It's not just the Muslim Arab vote. I mean, I wrote that piece a year ago in October of 2023 that Biden was at risk of losing the election because of places like Michigan, Pennsylvania, and suppressing that Muslim Arab vote. So it's about the numbers of it. If you got more of them, if you got more young people, so many young people didn't even participate. There were fewer people that voted than voted in the 2020 election.
Right.
So that's where the Democrats really need to look in the mirror and do a lot of self-analysis as to why that was, where they failed, and how they need to bring in those voices and people that actually live in the communities, that are on the ground, that can talk about the issues of their concerns, and not, consultants being paid a gazillion dollars.
There's always
And
going to be
and to that point, abortion was so successful because there was such a focus on bringing those voices in and hearing from those people. But you're only going to cause division if you're only talking about trans folks and talking about people who are battling this. I mean, if there was a silver lining in all of it, it seems to me that if people felt disenfranchised because they were from communities that that used to be considered in the values of the Democratic Party, it gives us an opportunity to go back to where I would like to see us, where I would like to be, centering people. And I think, I can't remember if it was you, or I think it was you, Dean, who was like, people are trying to do these hot takes, like throwing trans people under the bus and throwing people under the bus that we simply are part of our community, who we want people to feel safe and thrive and be who they are. Like, you have to humanize them and let people get to know who they are. And so I think that I'm excited to do that work. I'm excited to really make sure that people hear those stories, because it's important. If you don't know somebody and Trump's throwing stuff at football games, I don't think Kamala Harris should have gone on Joe Rogan. I don't fucking think anyone should go on Joe Rogan. That guy's a dirtbag.
Sorry.
Like, if you're, yeah, Pete, we've talked about it. Have
It's
you gone on?
2019. COVID hadn't started.
Exactly.
I lost
Yeah,
my
no.
job.
You needed haters to like you.
5 years ago. That right.
Oh, you were on Rogan? Oh boy.
Yeah, I remember. Hey, by the way, to Nitha's point about, I was so like, I'm not sure that angry is the right word.
I would. Can I just say something about that to
Please
get
do.
Liz and Nitha? I
Sure.
think that part of my role should continue to be going into white male spaces.
Yes.
Mhm.
Oh, that's why I do that.
But there's white male spaces and there's deplorably unforgivable people.
I don't think the time I went on his show was indefensible. I don't think it was then. I think it was different. A little bit different before COVID.
Yeah.
I'll send you the clip of him talking about me on his show in 2015.
Well, that's why I went on.
And what it was pre-COVID, and he made up a giant lie, and I had death threats for like 5 months.
Wow.
So
yeah, I had plenty of death threats after I did the show, and I'm a man. So
yeah.
Did you really?
But I do, but Pete, I do, to your point, because I feel the same way about me. Like, and that's what I've done always, is you can't say, I'm not the white lady that voted for Trump. What I want white women who voted for Kamala to ask themselves is, what work are you doing to even bring new information to other white women? I'm not going to say you're going to succeed, but you cannot act like you get a pat on the back for doing something that's obviously what you should be doing. And then not taking that next step to say, my aunt is terrible, and I'm actually going to say at Thanksgiving, like, you love me, and I hear you say that, and it's harmful. Like, I have really cool friends I'd love you to meet, but I don't feel like that you would be nice to them, because I feel like you wouldn't open your heart to them. I don't want to believe that about you. Like, you have to have those conversations. You can't just be out in the street being like, ceasefire now and Black Lives Matter, if you're not at a table with the people in your life who might be trash, and saying to them, here's a way I need you to think about what life could be like for you, and how full it could be if you could think in a different way. And they may say, fuck you, I'm doubling down on my racism, but you got to introduce new information to the people in your lives.
I think the role for white progressive men in responsibilities for us is a really important and interesting conversation to have, because I don't think Nitha and Liz have been ever confused about what they're supposed to do. But I think that it's easy to realize or not think I'm not part of the problem because I don't think that way.
Yeah.
But being part of the group of people who is the problem means that we have to also be the primary, the spearhead of the solution. And in terms of, my role with women and people of color, and I just say this to my white brothers specifically, my job there is to continue to be led by them. That starts with listening and then going into their spaces and saying, I am one of the good ones, but not saying that, just by modeling it and then taking their lead and taking their orders, which is what I'm really proud to have done with my show. I'm led by specifically women of color in a large way about where I go and what I do and what I say. And I think that's been very helpful for me to go back to white spaces and white men and make sure that if one of those people isn't in the room, they're not getting away with their normal behavior if I am.
Well, and you're taking the burden off, and this is how I feel too, taking the burden off people of color who if we're not saying to white folks what needs to be said, then it's the burden of people of color, Black people, people of color, to
It
have
doesn't
to like be
no,
explainers. And
it
that
doesn't
shit's
work.
not great.
It's not as effective as if a Black woman tells a white man how it's going to be. They're like, why should I care what you think? If a white man and it's dangerous. If a white man tells a white man how it should be, that is something that moves the needle much more. And so not only should they not have to, it's not very effective for women to tell men how to be. Men have to tell other men how to be, and men have to role model a certain behavior. I mean, that's how it works. That's how we get better. That's how I've learned. I wasn't always this.
Pete, do you go to a lot of places known as white spaces? Do you have a place that you enter white brothers? How are you? Like,
Yes.
What kind of meetings is Pete going to? This is very all right. Let's take a break.
And the show has veered into a totally different direction, but I'm glad.
That's fine. I'm like Piers Morgan. I'm just watching. Like, but you guys aren't fighting. Like, Piers Morgan just sits back and lets people. I'm glad you guys are having a very honest conversation. I think it's great.
I'm glad to hear Pete say that. And, because and the reality is that regardless of who won the election, the vast majority of white people are going to be okay. That is also very true. So the burden should not look at Pete throwing his hands in the air. But so the burden, like you said, should not be on women, on people of color and everybody else. And at the end of the day, it comes down to like when shit goes down, it's not only having these conversations amongst your white brothers, but it's also what are you guys going to do when shit goes down? Because it is coming. It is coming in terms of deporting people, in terms of, just going after specific communities. I mean, just look at what happened in the past few days. I mean, it's insane that like Black people are receiving text messages saying that you go pick cotton. Rise and when Trump the first time, there was an exponential increase in hate crimes. And now everybody is even more emboldened. He's going to surround himself by sycophants and people that will do everything he wants to do. And most Americans don't understand what authoritarianism actually means. And sadly, they're about to learn the really, really hard way.
We have
and
to preemptively we have to preemptively create actual safe spaces. Like I'm going to go around the country and find safe houses for people that might need to get out of town or might need a place to stay. There's a lot of great people out there. So we have to actually do that work.
It's nice, but it sounds creepy coming from you, though. That's the only thing. All right, let's take a break. We're going to come back. We're going to continue our conversation with Nida Khan, Lizz Winstead, and our white friend, Pete Dominick, right after this quick break. And welcome back, Dean Obeidallah Show. We're continuing our conversation with Nida Khan, Lizz Winstead, and our buddy, Pete Dominick. So, there's a lot of people now, including journalists I like, who are looking at the demographics of who voted for Trump and really saying, look at Latino men. Really, they let us down, that kind of stuff. And I'm like, why are you looking at the real foundation of Trump supporters? The exit polls show that 70% of white men that have a less than a college degree voted for Trump, 70%, and 62% of white women who had a less than a college degree voted for Trump. Harris won white men and white women with a college degree. So to me, somehow blaming Latinos because 7 or 8% more voted for Trump. His base are white men. And I say their education status because that's the way it's broken down in exit polls, not in any kind of dismissive or elitist way. That's just the reality of it. That's his base. And that's what we're living with. So, and they're not, I don't know if they're going to benefit at all. If the tariffs come, as Liz talks about, they'll be paying 20 to 60% higher, depending where they're getting their goods for things. And there'll be no benefit for them because the wealthy are going to get out of tax breaks. They're going to have a big tax cut. So that's the thing. And I don't even know, do you ever even try to reach out? Because some Democrats are now like, we have to reach out to working class people. What percentage of them can we really peel away? I just don't even know. I don't know if that's the group we should be going after. So Liz,
no, I think they should. I think there's a huge percentage. And they've been completely ignored also and left out of the conversation. And I think they absolutely need to go after the working class. And I'm going to revise my earlier statement because white people will be affected by this too. When you see healthcare being stripped away, when you see, like you mentioned, the cost of everything going up, when you see all these draconian policies put in place, because the sad reality is that the average person is hurting, right? Like their dollars are stretched more thin. And then you have a guy who acts as if he's for the people, he's going to do something when his policies are the complete opposite, or he doesn't even have policies. He has a, what did he say? A plan?
Concept of a plan.
Yeah, thank you. Concept of a plan, not even an actual plan. And instead he's funded by a billionaire machine who they already, since he's been elected, made $64 billion they added to their own personal wealth. So it's, it's so infuriating and so sad that this is the person that then manipulates the very real emotions of the working class and even the middle class and the poor and a whole bunch of folks to think that he's going to make their lives better. And I think Democrats need to show how their policies will actually help them to have better lives, to, have more affordable housing. What are they going to do to just alleviate this pain?
Liz, what do you think about the idea? Is it reaching out to working class voters? Like a sliver of them, perhaps, that support Trump, of the white ones, might come over, and Latinos. I mean, black men end up performing pretty well for Harris, a little less, but it was still very solid. And black women were unbelievably great for Harris
Yeah,
again.
I mean, I couldn't agree more. You need to reach out to people who have not been given a fair shake and show them that you've got plans to give them a fair shake. If you're a white working class person in America, your jobs were shipped overseas. We stopped making shit. The Green New Deal, like if you call it that, it just doesn't appeal. But like we're living in a new time. Like let's look at this like when all of a sudden there was automobiles and people got to make them. Like with innovation means you're invited to the party and we can make those things here. And you can have because the truth is people don't want to just hear that the price of eggs is going to go down and that the price of milk is going to go down. They want to hear that they can have a wage where they can have a Saturday off. They can go on a vacation. They can have joy. They can, and like that they can have a full life being a person who lives in this country who's not just a jillionaire. What's aspirational about in this country for regular folks? Like folks who just want to have their family and be able to educate their kids and like, crack a beer and not feel so much burden. And I do feel like those people, when you're desperate and you don't feel like, and you're having a hard time, like you make desperate choices because future seems hard. So immediate seems comforting. And immediate isn't a solution sometimes. It's a band-aid, right? And so
All right.
there's so much that we've left out about just the process of being a human being in the world who gets to experience every, a couple of vacations twice a year, enjoy with your kids and time to go to their games and time to play cards and be able to go to that poker game and not freak out. I think that those things are we need to let people know and have policies that are clear for working class people. I'm from Minnesota. I'm in Minnesota right now. And, that's why Tim Walz is very popular here because the middle class here it thrives and they feel, and they aren't even,
Interesting.
they're just like, we're just thriving and living here because we have safety nets and everyone has them, in putting in breakfast and lunch programs in the public schools in Minnesota for every kid.
Yeah.
Right? You're like, oh, you know what rich people didn't do? Say why they said, you know what? Sometimes I oversleep and I didn't get time for my kid to have breakfast and I get to drop my kid at school and I know my kid's going to have breakfast. It benefits everyone,
That's
but
great.
especially those who need it the most. And so
Sure.
thinking about how do programs that maybe you don't utilize benefit you because it's really helping middle class folks and poor folks. That's where we need to get to.
I want to ask just everybody to react to the conversation that we're having is one that would be all good advice and probably effective in a normal America where the administrative state won't be deconstructed and the Supreme Court isn't run by Christian nationalists. So I think everything that was just said will continue to work and be effective for Democrats communicating in exclusively blue states. However, for federal government policy, Liz, I wonder if you can do any things that you just said, suggest we're going to pass this policy if they just get rid of the FDA and regulatory framework and the ability for the federal government to do that. And even if they did pass a policy, say, against gun violence that most Americans want, would the Supreme Court just strike it down? So the future of our political system is in so much debate and question because we just don't know what he's going to do that doesn't allow everything that you both said to occur. That's my question. I don't know.
We're on the way. The reality is that we're on the way to a more entrenched oligarchy than we had before. With Elon Musk, the heads of Donald Trump's transition team, two of them, Linda McMahon and Howard Lutnick, both billionaires. Everyone, his biggest donors were billionaires. This is going to be a government where it's for the rich, by the rich. And they're going to sit there and they're going to make policy that makes them money. And they're going to give crumbs in terms of culture war stuff or a little bit of help to different people. They might deliver populist stuff, Pete, because they know that'll be something for the masses. So the only reason they would give like a national, federal free breakfast and lunch schools around the nation, because like they have to give some crumbs
I don't think they're going to.
I'm not saying they're going to do it, but they've got,
part.
if they don't deliver
because
anything at all, I wouldn't be surprised if they deliver populist stuff, because that's what populist, the fascist or the authoritarians that come in do things for their base. And Trump, everything he did the first 4 years was what was happy, makes his base happy. He didn't care about the rest of us. So if he thinks it's going to help, it might just be culture war stuff. It might not be actual policies and programs. It might be culture war stuff. It might be education stuff. The 1776 school thing. It'll be, and Liz, if they win the House or hold on to the House, it can go either way. Probably leaning toward the Republicans getting the House, but maybe by one vote. Do you think they do a national abortion ban right away, or do you think that's down the road?
Well, I mean, I think that they're not going to put abortion ban up for a vote. I think that this is the part that's terrible, is that Trump has so much executive power to create a de facto national abortion ban without any having to vote on it, so they can keep him honest. And that's what makes me really angry. He can appoint someone to the FDA that could roll back approvals of mifepristone. They could enforce the Comstock Act. They could start doing all this tracking of people and period tracking. They could go back to removing all Title X funds from any clinics that provide or refer to abortion care like they did under Trump. And if you and set up scenarios where there is a de facto abortion ban without ever having to cast a vote on it. And I think that's what we need to worry about. I'm literally looking at my team at Abortion Access Front and saying, do we revive our mission to where part of us being on the road and touring and raising awareness, do we create a private delivery system that does not fall under the Comstock Act? Where like honestly, that is the kind of pivoting organizations are talking about right now, so that we can be doing the work that the Postal Service can't. Like, is that what happens? That's like what we're saying. Like, that's what's happening.
That's it. But you're being creative, and you're also, planning on what they might do and what's likely they're going to do, so you don't get caught off guard. Which brings me to something else: that the idea of how to get people engaged. Like, I'm not sure you're hearing from listeners to your Stand Up with Pete Dominick, the wildly popular podcast available everywhere. Are you hearing people? Are you getting emails from people going, "I'm checking out, I'm leaving"? I've gotten emails from people with leaving the country, and they're not saying it cliche. Like, they gave me the details. They're leaving. So that's a few. I'm sure there's others like that. They can still vote living outside the country, but they don't want to be here. Others are like, I've done so much in politics and nothing's helping, and I'm done with this kind of thing. Have you heard any of that? And what's your reaction to them? You haven't.
I haven't heard much of that. We are, like I said earlier, we were together on Tuesday night, and then on Wednesday night I held another Zoom hangout. Like a lot of podcasts, and we have this relationship with listeners, and we had, I host a weekly hangout for people, and we've created this wonderful, beautiful community. And like I said earlier, the way I lead it is to try to let several Black folks, specifically a few Black women, lead the conversation. So if they were punching out, we probably would have had more of a conversation about that. But there's this one woman who gave an epic speech about fighting and doing work and protect, so I don't blame anybody for any reaction they're having. You want to leave, you want to quit, you want to protect your own, all those are perfectly appropriate to me. But what I did here was from people of color specifically saying, I'm here and I want to, and more importantly, again, creating community is really important right now. And that's what we're focused on, building a community that can protect each other and communicate with each other and help each other.
Nitha, what about you? I mean, people do need to recharge. I had my sister on yesterday, who's a psychologist, and gave advice to people specifically, like real world advice about if they're going through difficult times now with anxiety or they're despondent, or where's the line where you should actually get professional support that you need that. But I mean, what do you think? Have you heard from peers or friends about, I've had enough of America. I'm not going to be active anymore in politics. And even if you haven't, how do we get people more engaged? Because the turnout for this election, I don't mean the voting, like I never talked to more people who were volunteering in my life on a campaign. People were knocking on doors. They were going to other states. It was all in. Like, I'm like, we have to win this. And then we didn't win that. So I'm afraid like some people, the setback is so great because Trump, it's Trump. It's not like Mitt Romney that, they're like, my hands, I'm done.
Yeah, I've been hearing that from a lot of people actually. And especially us like women of color, it's like we're just exhausted and burnt out. And every single woman I know in general is pissed off in this moment and are just done. I've even heard women saying, I'm going to withhold sex to men right now. Like that's how angry they are and just completely pissed off and with everything that has gone down. And I've heard people say that they want to leave, that they're going to leave as well too. But that, again, that's a privilege to be able to leave, right? And go somewhere else. The vast majority of people can't just pick up and move to another country. Like it's not going to happen. And then some people are angry enough that they do want to stay and fight. They want to continue battling all these battles. But, people are scared. People are very, very worried about what's going to happen. And if you look at just something as simple as like, well, and I tweeted this last night about how, so a federal judge struck down a Biden administration program that would allow unauthorized immigrants married to American citizens to get legal status. And that's, before anything has even happened, like before he's inaugurated, has taken power, they're already, his press person was saying that, yeah, he's going to do the deportations on day one. And just like when he ran the first time and he campaigned on banning Muslims, first thing he does when he gets into office is the executive order to ban millions of Muslims from coming. So, he says the quiet part out loud over and over and over again. And what I fear is going to happen with this deportation program, they're going to turn it into some sort of economic boom for people here to get jobs, just like you see with the prison industrial complex, how you see with the war machine, because a lot of the weaponry and things like that are made in states and places that actually employ people. So it's this whole like messed up dynamic. And I think that that's exactly what they're going to do with immigration and deportation. And that's just one aspect of it. And that's a way to keep people quiet and happy. Like, oh, we got you a good paying job if you help kick these other people out. Rather than looking at the billionaires and the wealthy that create all these problems, it's once again pitting people against each other. And that division is just going to increase as we go along. And it's about building this kind of diverse coalition that you have on your show right now, like-minded people who care about other people and what happens to all of us. We have to be closer and stronger together than ever before, because it's going to be a tough 4 years or longer.
Could be longer. Liz, last thing, we only have a couple minutes left. You've been a longtime activist. You're already making plans. Like, you're not like, we're done. You're actually making plans. Like, here's what they're probably going to do. Here's how we're going to work around it. What do you say to people to keep people engaged if they feel a little down? Do you tell them like, check out, relax for a little bit? Or do you say, hey, you got to have the resistance starts now? Like, where do you come down on this? And
well, definitely listen to our podcast that drops tonight, because we had Jessica Valenti on, and then we had our team from AAF on, and we have programs in place that we put in place in 2016 when this happened before. It's if you had a posse of friends that you were working with, canvassing and doing all this stuff, like, come and volunteer with us. We have a bunch of programs that can keep abortion providers going, that helps with the needs they have, that helps people get the care they need. Because as we're trying to plan for how this is all going to lay out, you need to keep active so that muscle is active, so that we can activate you on the pivot of where we need to go and what we need to be doing. Because the truth be told, and I've said this on both of your podcasts, this whole, the other reason I'm angry about warmongers and all of that is, what do you owe those people in the end? And acting like you're going to move forward with people who you owe something to go back to those policies. The Restore Roe framework wasn't enough, because vulnerable people, people of color, rural people, poor people didn't have access to reproductive care under Roe. Like, everything needs to be moved forward, and people need to hear language and words and need to be able to participate in something. where you're making a difference in somebody's lives, it is like a warm blanket. And so if abortion care and reproductive care is your issue, go to our website and click on volunteer
what's the website?
resources.
This is
It's
perfect time.
aafront.org, and click on volunteer resources and get a bunch of your friends, get 5 people you trust who are not going to bail, and start doing the work.
And Nitha, where's the website before we wrap up where people can find your work?
No, God, don't ask that question because it's currently under construction, but I'm still on stupid Twitter. I'm always going to call it Twitter. It's Nida Khan NY. So it's NIDAKHANNY, which, oh yeah, by the way, the day of that MSG rally, do you know who retweeted me? And I was so disgusted that he came after me, was Trump's senior advisor, the other Miller. What's his name?
Jason Miller?
Jason
Yeah.
or Stephen?
Yes,
Or Jason.
Miller.
Jason Miller is the one who, by the way, slipped an abortion pill into his partner's drink without her permission.
That's exactly who he is.
Let's please remember that.
Yes.
And
a lot of people, we just found out a lot of voters are apparently okay with that.
Right. So Pete, your website is whitebrothers.com, right? Isn't it? Or what?
We changed it
to white spaces.
Chalky Bro is the
where's the website people can check out?
Standupwithpete.com. Standupwithpete.com. And I host a daily podcast and I do the news and I interview guests like all of you, and I want all of you on. But I think like right now I'm really interested in building the kind of community component of and around the podcast. So I'd love to have people come join our community events and hangouts. And so please come over to standupwithpete.com or patreon.com/Pete Dominick.
Thank you all. Thank you all 3 of you for being very honest and open about how you're feeling emotionally and politically, but how we go forward. It's going to be challenging. And I'm so glad that we're all in this together for each other. And that's even White Pete. I'm really glad he's here as well. All right, guys, we're going to take a break. Be right back with more of the show.